one of the things I talk about with my students is there are things we know we ought not do. And we're very clear on that. We have the information. So I know now as a middle-aged man, I'm admitting that I'm middle-aged, that I cannot consume calories in the same way I used to be able to. And so if I'm staying up late on a Friday night and I'm, maybe watching Extraction 2 or whatever new action movie is out, it's 11 o'clock, I'm sitting on my couch, starting to feel a little bit hungry. And you know what? The box of Cheez-Its is calling my name. But I know, I've read the nutrition label, I know this is not a good idea. But it's like there are two parts of me, right? I've got the one part that's like my guts part, that is like, you really need Cheez-Its. And then my head part is like, but your doctor's going to be upset about cholesterol. Yeah. And so I think this phrase self-control is a way of acknowledging that sometimes internally we can be at cross purposes. And this is actually not new. People have been talking about this and how to deal with it for a long time. So Plato, the philosopher, he had this image of a human soul, and he thought it had three parts. Okay. And he used this image of a chariot driver. Okay, so with the chariot, you have the driver and the two horses and the thing being pulled. And so in his mind, the driver, which the word there is logos, which means something like reason. So this is like the rational part of a human is supposed to be driving. But then you have these two horses. And the thing about horses is they're a lot bigger than humans, and they're really stinking powerful. You don't want to be on the business end of a horse when it's upset. So these horses, if they are not controlled, right, we put bits in the mouth of horses to control them. If they are not controlled, they can easily pull the chariot wherever they want to go. And Plato thinks this is the fundamental problem of the human soul, is that we have these really unruly horses, and that the thing we need to do is somehow learn how to make the horses go where we want them to go. And a lot of times that's just really hard to do in the moment. You have to train the horses pretty well. And I actually think it's instructive the way these two horses represent different things. And I think it's actually a pretty good division of maybe what it means to be human. So the first horse is the word in Greek is epithumia. That word actually gets used a lot in the New Testament, and it means something like desire. And in the context of its use, we're not talking about any desire. We're talking about appetitive desire, so appetite. So it can be food. It can be sexual appetite, so lust. It can be appetite for money or possessions, which is greed. So this is one of the horses that can really get humans off track. The other horse is thumos, which it's hard to translate, but I would say it means something like the hot parts, like anger. But the thing about these horses is they're not uniformly bad. Right, yeah. Because anger is the flip side of a human's desire for justice, that things be right, that people be treated fairly. And lust, right, is sexual desire improperly placed. There is no problem with you placing that desire on your wife or me placing that desire on my wife. And actually, human relationship with God is not sexual, but it's described in equally strong terms. So the problem with the horses is not that they're horses. The problem with the horses is that they get aimed at the wrong thing.
They're uncontrolled.
They're uncontrolled, yeah. And so I tell my students, I try to put really bizarre images in their head so they remember them. And so I say, well, you got to keep your horse on the leash. Nobody puts a horse on, that's not what you do. And one of the ways I think we put our horses on the leash is by training them ahead of time. So that, really the best defense against me eating Cheez-Its at 11 p.m. is to not have Cheez-Its in the house. Right. It is really hard to make a good decision in the heat of the moment. Yeah. And I think a lot of us, so take driving. We got a lot of heat of the moment examples in driving. Okay. There are appropriate and inappropriate hand signals to give while driving. And most of the time, if you get cut off, there's going to be this like instant split second wrath,
Yeah.
thumos, anger sort of reaction where you might be tempted to give somebody the wrong kind of hand signal.
Yeah.
And when we're in the heat of the moment, we're not intercepting this impulse that we have.
Right.
So the question is, how can I train myself over the long run so that the natural thing that I do is not the angry thing? Mm-hmm. So we have this phrase, something is second nature for a person. So it might be natural to flip the bird to somebody, but if I work on keeping my horses on the leash, like what if I was able, and I'm not saying I'm able to do this yet, what if I was able to offer some sort of quick prayer of blessing for the person who just cut me off? That takes practice and premeditation. You don't naturally do that, but it can become second nature.